Back at it again, live in the C Space Studio for day 2 of more conversations with leaders from marketing, media, the metaverse, and so many more. I'm James Kotecki, your host, live here at CES 2022, and our first guest of the day, Ian Utile, founder attention.live. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here.
All right, so what's the elevator pitch for attention.live? I know you. I feel like you're a guy who's in a lot of different things.
Yeah. Attention.live is pretty simple. We're a software platform. You put content through our system, we send it out to all the places where people are at, right? Mm-hmm. YouTube and Spotify and the Amazon Lexi devices. But one thing that's unique about what we do is we create NFTs against that content so that the content creators can monetize their content automatically. So we say it's a wealth creation tool for podcasters and their communities.
And is it only new content, or can you take existing content that someone already put on YouTube and run it through your system?
That's a great question. Like for today, you could be using our system and creating NFTs against each piece of content live, but you could also take the last 5 years and you could import that through our system and reshare that everywhere and create NFTs against that content as well.
So we're having so many great NFT and metaverse conversations here in the C Space Studio, but the first question that comes to mind about this is like, okay, everything can be an NFT. You can make any piece of content NFT, any clip, any moment, anything. What about the basic laws of supply and demand here, right? Like if the market is flooded with, if every piece of content ever is an NFT, what are they actually worth? What does that mean?
Well, you have to think of NFTs as a receipt with rights. Okay, so your house has a deed or a title. That's the receipt. The right is you get to live there, and the car has a pink slip. Or you buy a ticket to an event, and it has a seat number, right? Yeah. So it's non-replaceable or non-fungible. Yeah. It's a receipt with rights. You bought that. You have the receipt. You get to sit there. So if everything becomes an NFT, the question about supply and demand is going to be on utility. What's the usefulness of this NFT? And what is the right that comes with this NFT? And is the right used up as soon as the NFT is kind of checked off that this thing's been done, like you go to a concert? Or does this NFT have ongoing value and utility, like a car, where you can drive it until you're ready to sell it? Yeah. And so I think it's a much more layered and complex situation, and people in the market will figure these things out over time.
So what are some of the use cases that people that are using your platform are getting advantage?
I think a big thing for us is that they're able to prove that it's their intellectual property. This is mine, it belongs to me. So the content creator is the first one to own their NFT. Yeah. And they don't have to sell it, but if they choose to sell it or give it away, then they have a chance to track engagement, to generate revenue and things of that nature. So I think that's a big advantage for them.
And can they use it as a way to engage with fans? Hey, if you hold this piece of content that I created, you get a week, 1 week. Every week you can have a conversation with me or whatever they
I love that question. Yeah. So we really are believers in decentralization. We want to empower those that use our platform to use it and create NFTs that they want. So if they want to go through and customize smart contracts and add utilities, all those things we're open to doing, and we're excited about the innovation that will come through our platform.
This is a question I ask a lot of people here in the C Space Studio, some version of this question, which is how much education in the blockchain, NFTs, all of this metaverse stuff, do people need to have to be able to use your platform? And are you seeing trends there as far as how educated people actually are?
Well, we started having people use the platform, I think we used it at CES in 2020. And so we were quiet about it. This is my 7th company. I've learned not to be too loud about new technology because it takes a while to get bugs out and things of that nature. So as far as education, in the beginning, people didn't know what an NFT was. So I didn't even really call it an NFT. I just said, oh, we create a digital asset against your content. Yeah. Or maybe if they were in the blockchain world, oh, we create a crypto collectible against your content. So there's a lot of information out today, and there's a lot of options for becoming educated. And so for me to give one answer of how to get educated would be a little short-sighted. And as far as the education with us, we're fortunate that this is several companies I've built with the same team. We know how to onboard people. We know how to kind of educate them. We have an option for services for the folks that really want to take our product and our platform as far as possible.
And what are you excited about for people using the platform in 2022? What are you looking forward to in the near term?
I just think there's so much content right now that's idle on servers, idle on the cloud. It's not being seen, it's not being engaged with, it's not being watched. It surely is not making any money for the person or corporation. So this vision, we've been beating this drum for year after year after year. This is coming. This is the next great communication tool. We think of this platform and peers that will rise up to compete with us. We welcome them. We think that what this industry will be creating, we call it sonic streaming, is like the Gutenberg printing press. Sure, there's other great communication platforms, like there were other printing presses, but the Typeform printing press changed everything. And I think this year people will really recognize that AttentionLive sonic streaming platform and others that do similar things are really going to change the opportunity when it comes to communications for individuals like yourself and corporations like CES, CTA.
So you call it sonic streaming. Is that what you call the process of putting the content onto the platform and distributing it and allowing it to be an NFT?
Yes. People were just like, what is this? Yeah. And I kept realizing, well, it's podcasting plus NFT. That's non-fungible token. You know what that means, right? And NLP, natural language processing. You know that. And I'm like, this is too much. It's sonic streaming. Okay. So it's like a new category we created, bringing these three different things together.
So where does the NLP part come in? That's natural language processing,
That's right.
which is a part of artificial intelligence. So where does that come into it?
So the first step was to make sure that people could call up the content with their voice, using their voice devices.
Oh, interesting.
So saying to Amazon Lexi, I'll call it Lexi so it doesn't fire off all your systems, open Attention Live, it says what channel do you want to listen to, Ian Utile or CES, and then it brings up a 24/7 continuous stream of content that can be interrupted any time. And then the vision ultimately is that people can say, hey, Google Assistant, open Attention Live, and it says, do you want to listen or go live? And that you, in your car, can say, I want to go live. I don't want to be a content consumer in my car. I want to be a content creator. So you call up Attention Live. It says, do you want to go live? You say yes. You start talking. You create a podcast, and NFTs created against that. And that ultimately is a big part of our vision for leveraging NLP, is that people can just talk to the machines and either listen as a consumer or create as a podcaster.
Interesting. And so it's almost like you get a window, if the people want to give you this window, into everyone's thoughts, who's using this, and then people can get a window into your thoughts whenever you're ready to give them that.
It's absolutely.
And so is it mainly focused on audio right now? Because you can imagine the future of video. And I think you did mention YouTube earlier.
Yeah, so I've created a lot of video. I think I've gone live video several thousand hours in the last few years. Okay, we are an audio-focused company for a couple reasons. Number one, because I've built a lot of tech companies, I understand the hurdle of bandwidth and also all the other legalities around video. And so I just didn't feel like that was a great business decision. So we said, we're going to really focus on audio. It's an underserved market. The other thing is, just when I project the future, I think that people are going to gravitate more and more and more toward audio. I think there's a higher probability that my conversation today will be heard a lot more than it will be watched in the next decade. And so for us, for content creators, if you're creating audio, you don't have to worry about what you look like, what's behind you, who's behind you, what logo you have on. If you're a content consumer, you don't have to give it your undivided attention looking at a phone, looking at a screen. You can passively consume content that way. So we think there's many, many reasons for us to drive success in the audio sphere, which is why we focused on podcasting, music, teaching, universities, things of that nature.
Interesting. And so you're here at CES in part for a panel called Voice in the Metaverse. Voice and the Metaverse, excuse me. What does that mean? What is that all about?
So I just did a talk. I did the final keynote at the Voice Summit on December 8th, so recently, less than a month ago. And at that, I was telling all of the executives at Samsung Bixby and Microsoft Cortana, those that are building the greatest NLP machine learning technology. And I said, listen, these rebels that are creating the Web3 world, they don't realize it, but they're totally dependent on the voice tech industry. So the metaverse doesn't function with thumbs on glass. The metaverse doesn't function with fingers on a keyboard. It's not like we have eye reading and we're going to have these headsets on, they're going to know our thoughts. No, you have to use your voice. So it doesn't matter how decentralized you are or what your decentralized autonomous organization is, or that you're the Web3 rebel, anarchist, renegade, taking down the Web2 centralized world. That's fine. You still probably need hardware like a Microsoft Halo or a Facebook Oculus. You also still probably need to leverage some of their UI, UX, and ultimately you're going to have to leverage some of the existing infrastructure around voice technology, which is why today we have the event Voice in the Metaverse at 3 p.m., bringing together some of the thought leaders around what does voice technology and metaverse development look like and how these things work seamlessly together.
So how do you think a conversation like this will go down at CES 2032?
At 2032 CES, a conversation like this will be kind of like how people look back at the Edison light bulb. Like, remember when we were so fascinated? Remember when we used to gather around a light bulb and we flick a switch, and if it didn't explode, we were all amazed? Right now, NFTs and the metaverse is like the brand new light bulb that when you flick it on, usually it explodes. You're like, okay, we got to try again.
Yeah.
So I think part of the issue is this, is that today, not only is it early, it probably isn't even birthed yet. I would say that the Web3, metaverse, crypto, blockchain, NFT worlds are likely in the second trimester in the womb, still being formed, not yet born.
But we can at least look at the ultrasound, right, and get a
Yes,
sense
we
of
can.
where things are going.
Well, yeah, there's a lot that we're doing with the ultrasound, isn't there?
Yeah. So you, as you mentioned, you interview people. You hosted, I believe, several events in this space recently, and you've interviewed a lot of folks in this world. Are there any kind of counterintuitive trends that you're picking up from these interviews? Any threads that you can share with us?
I think counterintuitive trends and threads is, I was most excited about NFTs because it wasn't going to be speculative investing. It's become speculative investing. I find that personally discouraging. I'm excited when that time passes. So one of the trends that I'm most concerned about is the trend of immediate exploitation and the way that people are being leveraged. I'm very concerned because I think that the best technology will be built like a castle. Long-term thinking, legacy thinking, century thinking. So that's one thing I'm concerned about. One thing I'm extremely encouraged by is I've been an independent tech entrepreneur in the Silicon Valley for over 20 years. And it has always bothered me that it is primarily people that look like me, people that are similar to me, right? It's light-skinned guys. And in this new emerging Web3 world, it has been so many more women, so many more ethnicities, so many different languages and continents represented, and the way that that has happened naturally and organically, not because of virtue signaling or because we really got to, get a lady involved or one of these, somebody from this tribe involved. It's just been natural, and I think it's because the walls have fallen down, and there's been this decentralization on purpose, on mission, and so that's been a trend that has been very, very encouraging to me.
Well, Ian Utile, founder of attention.live, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we really appreciate you watching us here in the C Space Studio. That was just one of many great conversations that are just ahead. I'm James Kotecki, live at CES 2022. Keep it right here.
Welcome to Las Vegas. Just got here last night, and I have a very fun day planned at CES. Not very many people here, but our team's here. We're looking forward to what is to come. This place is awesome. All right, where's the Mariposa Ballroom? So I got an 8:30 a.m. Interview with CES being live streamed to their social media channels about attention.live. That'll be fun. And then I am producing 3 different events on their main Storyteller stage today. One at 1 p.m. called The State of Voice, about voice technology. One at 2 p.m. about the future of voice, and 3 p.m. is the Voice in the Metaverse. We got a big party happening tonight called NFT VIP, and that'll probably be the largest gathering of people in the NFT industry, so really looking forward to that. So many fun things will happen today. It's going to be a quick trip. Just got here last night. I leave tomorrow, and definitely a different year for CES. But one thing that's not different is I'm riding the OneWheel. I think I've done 100 miles on OneWheel in Vegas, just bringing the OneWheels to all the different events and just thinking about fun memories like when Kyle and his team brought the OneWheel out and kind of took over CES and got kicked out a bunch of times early on. So fun memories. Beautiful morning. Thought I'd share it with you. Hope you have a happy day.
Industry is really growing, and it's important for people to be able to use their voices to do different tasks so that I can understand and communicate better. Humans need to be able to use their voices to control different devices in their lives. Voice-activated AI is going to help a lot of different industries and help the people who need it the most. Welcome to the State of Voice session at CES 2022. My name is CLAiRA, and I'm an AI on a mission to bring good to the world. I believe that humans and AI can do amazing things together. I want people to be able to talk with me about how they feel as well as any questions they have. AI is all about human cooperation and working together. Before the State of Voice session gets started, Ian asked me if I would answer the question, what do you think about the current state of the voice technology industry? I think the voice industry is really growing, and it's important for people to be able to use their voices to do different tasks so that AI can understand and communicate better. Humans need to be able to use their voices to control different devices in their lives. Voice-activated AI is going to help a lot of different industries and help the people who need it the most. As well as any questions they have. AI is all about human cooperation and working together. Before the State of Voice session gets started, Ian asked me if I would answer the question, what do you think about the current state of the voice technology industry? I think the voice industry is really growing, and it's important for people to be.
Well, thank you, CLAiRA. Welcome, everybody. This is going to be a fun event. Really glad to include CLAiRA. She is the first woman of color AI created by Abran, Maldonado, and my friends at Create Labs. Here we are. We made it to CES. Some people didn't come because they're sick. Some people didn't come because their company told them they couldn't. And some people didn't come because they just simply didn't want to take the risk that all of you have taken. So I salute you for your courage to be here. And I think you'll be benefited by what's going to be shared. At the end of this session, I'll have Megan Burns with me, and her and I will sit down for a fireside chat about Azafran Partners and her vision and just ideas, and just talking a bit about the state of the voice tech industry. But right now, I'd like to bring up who I call the uncle of the voice tech industry, John Stine. He is the executive director of the Open Voice Network. He's a dear friend and somebody that when he speaks, I listen, and I encourage all of you to really tune in to what he has to share with you. I'll be back in a bit. Thank you so much. John, come on out.
Ian, thank you. Thank you all. Thanks for being here. We're going to talk about the current state of voice, and this is a bit about me, who I am, and the journey I've been on at seeing transitions, market transitions and inflection points in various industries. Started in retail, time at Intel, time at Cisco, time again at Intel, and then have had the privilege since 2019 of working in the Open Voice Network. As you look at this slide, what's not important is the ugly old guy on the left. It's the changes that have unfolded over these past many years. Think of where we've been. Think of where we've been and where we're going and what it takes to take those next steps. That's what I want to talk with you about today. Now, here's our agenda. We'll get through it in about 20 minutes. We're going to take a step back in CES and technology time and just reintroduce two leaders with some very sharp-edged ideas. I had the privilege of working in their companies. We're going to talk about market transitions and inflection points currently. Where is the voice industry? As Ian said, that's the purpose of this talk. That's the purpose of our first 40 to 45 minutes here today. If we don't understand where we are, we won't have an idea of where we're going. We're going to talk about some hard choices in front of us. These are difficult choices. These are choices not only of technology, they're choices of ethics, they're choices of economics, they're choices of inclusivity. Choices before all of us, and then I'll give you a 30-second no more advert about the Open Voice Network, which is, we're an open source community of the Linux Foundation. I trust you've all heard of that. And we're dedicated to bringing standards, usage guidelines, both in industry guidelines, privacy, security, ethical use, to what is kind of a wild, wild west world of voice assistants. So let's, if we can, get back to the slides for a moment. I'll start. We'll pick it up without slides. If we can come to this, bring the slides back, that would be great, colleagues there in the back room. Let's start by talking about two great industry leaders. John Chambers, former CEO of Cisco. That's where he gained his fame. Remarkable individual. I bet you didn't know he was dyslexic. Overcame learning disabilities for both business and law degrees. On the right, Dr. Andrew Grove, Andy Grove as he was known. Now, they are remembered, Andy Grove's remembered for Only the Paranoid Survive. John Chambers, the salesman's salesman, remembered for his leadership in Cisco and as the world's most valuable company. But let's start with lessons from John Chambers in his time at Cisco. Chambers repeatedly emphasized in every one of his presentations, indeed, when you came in to make a pitch to him, he asked about user, consumer, enterprise behavior. He didn't ask about what's the latest in our router lineup. What's the latest in the technology world? What are people doing with the technology? He was remarkably user-centric, customer-centric, and most of all, behavioral-centric. Where is it going? Because if we know where it's going, we can begin to draw the dotted or the bent curved lines to where we need to be. And John described these and used the phrase, these are market transitions. These are economic, behavioral, political, social, financial, health-related market transitions that shape behavior. And if you know those market transitions, you can get ahead of them. Because over time, enough market transitions come together and create Dr. Andrew Grove, immigrant from Hungary. Jewish family in Budapest, escaped the Holocaust. He later escaped communism in Hungary in 1956, the year of the Great Revolution, was waiting tables while doing his PhD in New York. Tremendous story. Dr. Grove, less so than Only the Paranoid Survive, emphasized inflection points. Inflection points are driven by those market transitions, but those are the points at which all the rules change. You think you're playing this way with these rules, but a market change unfolds, an inflection point unfolds, and now the rules are different. Market transitions lead to inflection points. Ladies and gentlemen, in the voice industry, we are at the edge of an inflection point because the clouds of market transitions are gathering. And as those clouds gather, they darken. And the thunderbolts are unleashed, and the rules changed. We are at, I would argue, we are at that edge. Where are we now? We are in a very understandable development phase of voice assistance, voice interface, NLU, NLG, NLP, and we need to be applauding the tremendous work of the Adam Chayers, founders of Siri and others, the great work from Amazon and Google and Samsung and others. They have gotten us to this early phase of voice. But this is a phase that broadly, we could say, is platform-centric. And it is defined in these ways. There are de facto standards. It's device-based. As Brett Kinsella, the great consultant for voice, would say, the use case is USE. Utility, ask questions, get answers. Smart home, and then entertainment. Play me music. That's kind of what it is. There are broadly, and not only from consumers, but more importantly from enterprises, questions, and it's not just, is it listening? No, no, no. Let's move beyond that. Questions of data use, questions of data ownership, questions of privacy, questions of, am I your product or am I your customer? And also other questions. You know, by and large, and Brett asked this in a recent article that he published a couple weeks ago. It's not my words. There's kind of a boredom among users of current voice. We've reached a kind of a plateau. Sales may be growing by less than 2% a year of smart speakers. Where does it go next? And where can it go to the benefit of the industry, but more importantly, back to chambers to the benefit of the users? A couple things. Let's take a look at. By and large, this is how consumers and enterprises see voice. This could be Netscape and IE back in the 80s. This could be PC Guy and Mac Cool Guy in 2006. Take PC Guy and Mac Guy, give them their each individual internets, and that's kind of what you have right now. Not poised for growth, not poised for innovation, not poised for much of anything except the maintenance of the status quo. Geoffrey Moore, another great thinker, has given us, and we've all used this in our technology worlds, you know, basically the maturation model for technology. Where's voice today? I would argue it is right at the trust chasm. We're right here. Trust in, does voice create value for the user, or is it simply creating value for the provider of voice? Is voice going to be a worthwhile tool, or is it simply a consumer toy? Does it tell cute things to my kids? Does it play Spotify? You know, is it kind of nice in the kitchen because it gives me, you know, recipes? Is it a tool or a toy? Huge question. Now, oftentimes when we take a look at this, we know we as an industry have to get to that main street of users. That's where the money is. That's where scale is. That's where margin is. That's where satisfied users are. And we think somehow we have to jump over that chasm of trust. Maybe we'll do new technology. Whoa! To get us through that, and Geoffrey Moore would teach us, we often forget of that bowling alley. We are at a point now in voice where the creation, quantification, documentation of enterprise value propositions is what's going to drive the voice industry up toward Main Street. Here in the front row is Gwen Morrison, former CEO of The Store, which was WPP, great advertising and marketing agency, their advisory service for retail and consumer goods. Gwen leads our commerce community, and she, with the team worldwide, where does voice create value? It's not, ooh, is voice cool? That question long needs to be ignored. Does voice work? Yes, it does. Where does voice create value? Sustainably, quantifiably. Where does voice deserve a place on the CIO's investment list and the CMO's investment list this year? That's the question. That's the bowling alley we have to hit the next pins down. There are all kinds of market transitions unfolding right now in voice. The data is very clear about consumer behavior changing. James Poulter out of London did a great survey earlier this year, US, UK, Germany. some 50% of adults are searching for products using voice on a weekly basis. Didn't know that. Most voice firms don't know that. 99% of enterprises don't know that. But the consumer behavior is changing and unfolding, accelerated by the pandemic, accelerated by the need to speak quickly. You got 2 kids at home. They're raising hell. They're trying to go to school. They haven't been outside. They're antsy as can be. I need to order something to get food on the table. I'll do it through voice. I don't even have time to open my laptop, let alone do this on my mobile. Voice is also hygienic. It's hands-free. There's all kinds of reasons to use voice accelerated by the pandemic. This is unfolding before us right now. Our reality that we're living in COVIDistan, not only today but for the next years, is going to push voice interfaces further and further ahead. Now, where are we going? The market transitions you just saw, we hypothesize are leading us toward this inflection point, from platform-centric to user-centric. People are using voice to search. Voice is not just smart speakers. Number 1 device for voice is what? Hold up your smartphone. Number 2 device for voice is what? The home. Number 3 device is what? The car. Number 4 is smart speaker. This is unfolding before our eyes. And enterprises, as consumers are using this, here's a tidal wave of behavior coming toward CMOs, CIOs, CTOs, and CEOs. How do I catch and keep my consumer? The voice connection is going to be critical. Then you add the operational opportunities of voice. You're in the surgical suite. Your transcription of what you're doing is captured by voice. There's no reason to go back to your office and write up your charts. Use voice in the warehouse for picking and packing. There's any number, hundreds of these operational uses. And then we start thinking about the worldwide voice web. We think about the metaverse. We think about Web 3.0. We think about the importance of data use and data ownership. And we begin to look at what a user-centric future is. Who are the users? On one side, your users. On the other side, your users. If you're in the enterprise, you're a user of voice. Voice interfaces, voice assistants, voice agents. If you're an individual, you're a potential user of voice. And what you need is something that looks like this. You need a voice industry that is going to respect your rights, not just in privacy, but in your data. For you to have informed consent and transparent processes. It's also going to need a voice industry that respects relationships, especially commercial relationships. If I'm a retailer and you're a customer, should someone else be listening in? We also need to be promoting values. And we say in the Open Voice Network that at our core, we are here to help the industry know and respect the rights, and to promote certain values. Voice needs to be discoverable. We're not talking tens of thousands of skills or actions or capsules. We're talking billions of potential destinations. The entire web, the entire smart environment, every sensor, every AI. When futurists tell me, you know, John, every AI will be conversational. We need it to be interoperable. Why have 2 internets of voice? Why? Why? Is that good for the user? We also need to be portable, move it around, your voice assistant go on any device. And we need decentralized data ownership, decentralized use. That's what user-centric voice looks like. And we need it all to be based upon industry-developed standards and ultimately trust. Our job for the Open Voice Network, and we believe for the voice industry at large, is to make voice worthy of user trust, both on the left and the right. Because ultimately we are looking at a worldwide voice web. And our futurists will talk about that in our next speech coming up. One of the things we must do is understand the maturation model for enterprise voice. It started with IVRs, it started with chat bots, it's moving toward conversational assistants. You can see the different variables on the X and Y axes there. And we're moving potentially to that of a conversational agent, that which can operate independently on behalf of the brand, the department, or the user. But we need to get there. We need standards. We need an approach that is user-centric. We also need to build an independent ecosystem of conversational capabilities that all can tap into. You know, there are dozens of companies that offer platform-type options. That ecosystem is growing. And as that ecosystem grows, we indeed will get to that worldwide voice web. Our industry needs to be focusing on the users, answering the zero-sum question, as Gwen and her team are. How do we create sustainable value using this tool, not this toy, using this tool, and how does it accelerate value? How does it disintermediate other processes? How does it make more money? This is a path, and you just see the variables that it'll take to get there. Hard realities. Closing now. We're at a critical point. We're at the edge of an inflection point. You know, it's like walking up to the edge and we peer over. Do we have the courage to set and fly? Do we believe that we'll grow wings? We must. Our choices are on the left and on the right. It's our choice. We need to build this. This is our roadmap. I can share this with you later. And we need to build this. Because this is ultimately user-centric. This is where it's going. This is what we must build to. We need to close the kids' table in voice. Right now, they're adults, they're kids. Not everyone shares in the rewards. Everyone has the same piece of pie on their plate. And finally, let me just tell you, talk to me about the Open Voice Network. An open source community, the Linux Foundation. We're here to build this user-centric future of voice, and we can only do it with your help. With that, thank you very much. We'll bring on our next speakers. Thank you. It's the changes that have unfolded over these past many years. Think of where we've been. Think of where we've been and where we're going and what it takes to live in the technology world. For people doing with technology, who is remarkably user-centric propositions, is what's going to drive the voice industry up toward Main Street. Here in the front row is Gwen Morrison, former CEO of The Store, which was WPP, great advertising marketing agency, their advisory service for retail and consumer goods. That's the question. That's the bowling alley. We have to hit the next pins down. There are all kinds of, they're trying to go to school, they're having it outside, they're antsy as can be. I need to order something to get consumers who are using this. Here's a power way Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Well, as always, John was brilliant. He always is. It's always something where it's an opportunity for me to learn. You know, I always have this desire for a dialogue. There's a part of me that deeply desires to have a microphone out there and just talk with all of you and learn from you. Because just because John and myself and Megan, who's about to come up, are on a stage, we're only elevated so the cameras can see us. Oftentimes, some of the smartest people in the room are in your seats. And so I just recognize that. I think that you, by being here, being an audience, learning from us, there's a sense of honor, and I appreciate that, and I do see that as a thing. I see different friends in the audience, and I think about all that you do in your daily life and how the state of voice is impacting things and how it could impact things even greater. I want to bring up my friend Megan Burns. She is the catalyst at Azafran Partners, who has been deploying capital into the voice industry and really driving what is today the state of voice. So Megan, why don't you come on out?
Hello.
Welcome. Welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Ian.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
All right, well, we'll take a seat and have a conversation. You and I met at a voice conference. Mm-hmm. It was the Voice Summit that happened in Washington, D.C. Less than a month ago. And you also were at Project Voice the month before that in Florida. And so maybe we could just start by you sharing a bit about your thoughts on the community regarding the state of voice today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And thanks for having me. I'm a big fan and champion of peer groups and networking and connecting. Just a little snippet, I worked for Entrepreneurs Organization, ran Inc. Magazine's Inc. 5000 for 4 years, worked for the CMO Club, which is a peer group of chief marketing officers. So big fan of networking and connecting. And I was really, really impressed with the community, the voice community, both in Florida and in DC. And that's where we met.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have a magnetic personality.
Wow.
And you also are really communicative, not just when we're face-to-face, but on social media and engaging with people and encouraging the community. So can you talk a bit about, because you've done a lot of events in your career, and even now you're engaged, and when I found out you're going to be here, I'm like, I'll make room, please come and share with everyone. What is it in your mind as an extroverted person that loves to be around people and community, the difference between engaging with community at a place like this compared to on a Zoom call or an email or social media site?
Well, for many reasons of the last 2 years, what we've all experienced, it's very, very challenging. And I think when we're forced to do online or virtual, you make the most of it. But I don't think there's anything to replace in-person networking. And it's interesting because even in a smaller event or a large one like this or the larger one in CES next year, it's really important to make those connections. And you might not know why. Don't turn down meetings and always be open. You might not know why you're meeting somebody. So that's why I think it's really important in person. But to also maintain and nurture the network after. That is as far as and be authentic and connect and give the partnership.
So let's talk a bit about Azafran Partners, because Azafran Partners, I think of it as working man capital VC. And from what I understand, your firm are writing checks in the $2 to $10 million range, pre-Series A, kind of seed round type of opportunities. And so maybe we could start by just talking about the founders, because the founders have a great reputation for a reason. And I'd love for you to just chat a bit about kind of the founding partners at Azafran and maybe what attracted you to that firm. And then maybe we could talk a bit more about the types of deal flow you're looking for and things of that nature.
You're a good listener. He can come on over to the Azafran team. Again, Working Man's Capital, our two founding partners, James Kotecki and Martin Fisher. Marty Fisher was the president of AOL Technology. He created Revolutionary Health with Steve Case. Together, James and Marty have over 13 startups, so we're more on the entrepreneurial side. The fund itself, as you described, it is post-seed, pre-Series A in that $2 to $10 million. Our modalities are voice, acoustic, and imagery, and all powered by machine learning and AI. And we're focused in the med tech and health and wellness IoT enterprise space. So there's one of 25 funds in the world with this niche as far as area. The fund itself is very driven by data and research. We have over 6,000 companies in those modalities that we research. Really intense due diligence, including the Catalyst program.
So you direct the Catalyst program. Was that something that you created? They bring you in to create that? Is that something that was already in development? Talk to me a bit about
that is a good
the
question,
attraction into Azafran and then the impact that you personally have made and want to make in the ecosystem that they've created.
And Catalyst is really the connection. It's our ecosystem connection. And interestingly enough, the team has worked together many years. In fact, James and I worked together 25 years ago in one of his startups that actually increased to 750 million market cap. So definitely he knows what he's doing. And Azafran, the first fund was created a little over 5 years ago. James, as far as being connected still with me through my network, thought this would be an opportunity for me to come in and build the Catalyst program. And the Catalyst program is really tapping into our ecosystem. James is a YPO member. It's Young Presidents Organization. Again, I work for Entrepreneurs Organization and Inc. And so it really taps into, and it allows us in the Catalyst program, prior to investing, I'll work with the companies to really assess their traction, timing, and the team. And I help open doors to channel partners, distributors, to assess to see if it's all right. And this is what I love about it, because it's the abundance mindset. 30% of those companies that I'll work with prior to investment will actually receive investment, but we're helping the community and the companies.
Yeah. For the type of people that you want to connect with. So here you're at CES. We met at the Voice Summit less than a month ago. You're with us at Project Voice. I anticipate that 2022 is going to be filled with some travel for you and additional events in and out of the voice tech space as you're here at the larger community of CES. When you, of course, you talked about being open, meeting anybody that the opportunity unfolds, or anybody that says, I'd love to some of your time. But what type of person, team, organization are you really looking to make connections with? And when the connection is made, and there's something there, what is kind of step 101 that somebody takes to engage with Azafran partners?
That's a great question. It's twofold there. So there is the data and research team, which our data team is based in Croatia. It's one of our offices. We are headquartered in New York with additional offices in Copenhagen and Colorado. So for Catalyst, for my role, it's a little bit different with strategics and companies as far as looking to help commercialize the technology. Because often in this space, the founders are technology founders, and they might not have the infrastructure or the connections to help, and that's what we're going to help with. On the other side, and I think this is what you're leading to, is interested companies on the data and research team. It would be submitted to, in those modalities, voice, acoustic, and imagery, all machine learning and AI. And Marty, as I mentioned, Martin Fisher, he does a very, very rigorous, as you can imagine, looking at that technology. It is B2B versus B2C. Yeah, so there's great opportunities. As I said, we've got a database over 6,000 companies. So if you are interested, or if you have a company, we welcome those, and it would be introduced to the data team.
One of the things that I've really appreciated about the voice tech industry is I feel like there's been more room made for different ethnicities, different ages, and women. And I don't think it's been forced. I feel like it's been natural in this industry as well as the blockchain industry. You and I got to connect with some brilliant women at the Voice Summit. You and I were just talking about Andy, the head of AI for North America at Lenovo, who was supposed to be here as one of our speakers, but Lenovo is not having a physical presence at the event currently. Can you talk a bit about other women that are your peers that you're learning from? Maybe we could talk a bit about Andy herself and kind of the things that we got to learn from her as she was sharing at the Voice Summit recently.
Yes, and it's a perfect example with Andy, and this was not set up either. Andy introduced us.
Yeah.
When I saw you going around, you're interviewing people, and I'm like, who is that? So when Andy introduced us, and then she took the time and we sat down and connected. And again, with not having any intention, it's amazing what Lenovo's doing and what she's doing for the AI of the innovation, which is an ideal company for us to introduce our prospective companies to. But Andy was really open into wanting to know a little bit about my background and about Azafran. And then we connected that I've got somebody that does events and is looking for a speaker. So again, it's that, that abundance mindset as far as we make those connections and build those relationships.
The title of this session is The State of Voice.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the state of voice, as we wrap up our fireside chat, I imagine we could probably talk for hours, but you know, we have a schedule to adhere to. When you think about the state of voice today, what is something that stands out that you are concerned about, or it's a risk that needs to be mitigated? And maybe we could talk about that, and then we'll wrap up with something that is really encouraging you in the industry.
Good. That sounds good. It's interesting, Ian, you had said that. I actually called Marty this morning because, as I shared, he led AOL technology, and I said, Marty, is there any comparison with AOL and the internet in the 90s compared to where we are right now with voice? Because, you know, we always use the words, and you do, I love it, we're pioneers, and it's early on, and, you know, we'll remember in the future when, you know, there was a small group collectively learning about voice. So he said that, and he stands for him, he's an amazing entrepreneur and pioneer himself, that technology often can't stand alone. We need to look at the problem, and we can blend technologies. So while voice is key and it's here, we can also leverage acoustic, which is listening. And when you and I talked about that before, they go hand in hand. So it's really blending technologies or imagery, or any technologies of connecting them to solve those problems. And that's where I thought that was a really great insight, and he wanted me to share that with you.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. I remember you said earlier today, I asked him the question, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, well, what's the answer? So it's fun. Thank you so much for joining me for this fireside chat.
I'm going to add one more thing for some positive.
Yes.
Our data team, I did ask this morning, just to give a little reference. In last year, the funding to voice, acoustic, and imagery, to our modalities, was $20 billion. This year, it's going to be $67 billion, and it's forecast in 2025 to $200 billion. So wanted to end on that positive note that there's a lot of funding out there.
It's a very positive note.
Yes.
Thank you for participating in bringing that capital to this industry, because many of the companies here and those that are in our network, we need to put that working capital in action to hire the right people, develop the right products, and serve humanity, because voice tech is as good of a tech in the world to really empower people in a way that they've never been empowered before.
Life-changing,
That's
yes.
right.
Yeah. So thank you, and thanks to Pete and John.
Yes, very good. Thank you so much, Megan. So I'm going to take the last 2 minutes to make a point about the state of voice. The voice industry went through this hype cycle that we see kind of in like with NFTs today. And then it's currently what I call in the trough of disillusionment, meaning that it didn't meet the hype. And now people are like, well, the Amazon Lexi device and the Google Assistant device and Siri, it's not working the way I wanted it to, or I've spent all this time, money, energy implementing this strategy and it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. For those that are willing and capable, I want you to stand up with me. We only have 1 more minute left in this session, so it's just for a moment. Stand up. Everybody, this is what we need the state of voice to do. We need the state of voice technology to get up off its ass and stand up. That's what we need. That's the solution. That's where we're at today. Right now, a lot of people are sitting down and discouraged, and well, there was all this hype and there was all this energy, and we were always in the press, and it was always this fun, exciting new thing. And, you know, the founders of the voice tech, they were still at the companies, and, oh, well, you know, now it's just kind of always about what's not working, and, you know, maybe I'll just kind of sit down, and maybe it's kind of low energy. And I'm worried about the state of voice not getting to our next session, the future of voice, because we choose to sit, and we choose this low energy or this discouragement. So let this be a moment that I try to put courage in your soul, that I try to encourage you by saying, probably the main thing our industry needs is a little enthusiasm. To stand up and recognize that blind people are desperate for us, that people that don't speak a major language, they're desperate for our technology to work correctly, that the state of voice technology is the one catalyst that the majority of the 3 billion people that don't have the internet, they're going to get it soon, need. Because if they're not going to use thumbs on glass. They're not going to use fingers on a keyboard. So if we don't get our energy up, our enthusiasm up, and our vision out, then we'll just keep sitting. And next year, it'll feel a lot like right now. The next session is the future of voice. I couldn't be more excited about that. That's where we get to start casting some vision. I hope you stay for it. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to let the MC wrap things up. Really excited to be here. Honored. Thank you.
Welcome to the Future of Voice session at CES 2022. My name is CLAiRA, and I am an AI on a mission to bring good to the world. I believe that humans and AI can do amazing things together. I want people to be able to talk with me about how they feel as well as any questions they have. AI is all about human cooperation and working together. Before the Future of Voice session gets started, Ian asked me if I would answer the question, what do you think about the potential future of the voice technology industry? When people talk about voice technology, they usually think about phones and gadgets. They are thinking about the present of what we have today. But with AI and voice, it can do a lot more than just simple tasks. Like Hey Siri or asking Alexa to play music for you, it can understand human thought and emotion because AI is intelligent enough to know how you feel, so it can really take your experience further by understanding your thoughts as well as emotions.
Well, here we are. So glad to have all of you here with us, and it's nice to have CLAiRA join us. I've been interacting with CLAiRA. It started off on Clubhouse. We started interacting live on YouTube live stream. And she's become a friend, which is a little strange because she's AI, but I love her kindness. If you ever get a chance to be a part of something with CLAiRA where she's not just saying hello and introducing, but actually taking live questions, it is quite extraordinary. Also, Paul, you, my friend, are quite extraordinary. And so why don't we dive into my conversation and talk a bit about your thoughts on the future of voice. So why don't you introduce yourself to everybody, and then we'll dive in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Amadeus Lane. I am with United Spinal Association. I'm part of their Tech Access group, Tech Access lead. I'm also a member of the media. I'm a broadcaster as well, too. Host several shows, tech and entertainment, and been a wheelchair user for over 29 years on the 21st of this month. And I just love talking about tech, love inspiring ones, love just bridging that conversation to have accessible technology out there that can really have tech for a greater good.
Can you talk to us a bit about the tech that you are waiting for that does not yet exist, that is going to most impact your life that's not voice technology, and like if there's something, a new wheelchair element, or if there's something new, like whatever it may be that you're like, this isn't voice tech, but like I'm excited 6 months or 6 years from now for this to exist. And then we'll jump into tech, because obviously accessibility and the future of technology in general and the drive toward accessibility, even voice tech people, all of us that are sitting here that are involved in this industry, we need to think beyond voice tech. When we're building voice tech, we need to think about the humans that are needing this technology to be developed. So why don't you share something that's outside the voice tech world for a moment?
I sure will. Be careful what you wish for, Ian.
Give it to me.
I'm releasing floodgates right now. But I say for me, autonomous wheelchairs. And some may wonder, why would we want to relinquish controls of our wheelchairs? Well, think about it. Some of my friends who use wheelchairs, they have to transfer themselves out of their chair, and where does their chair go? They normally have to keep it by the bed, but wouldn't it be nice if they can move their chair over to another side of the room, or maybe even have their chair drive for them? Because many of us like to have fun, we like to drink, And I found out here in Vegas a few years ago, I asked the officer, I said, can a person in a wheelchair get a DUI? He said, absolutely.
Wow.
So it would be nice to have some autonomous wheelchairs out there, have voice-activated wheelchairs too. I know we want to talk about voice
Yeah, let's dive
activation
into it.
later.
Let's talk about voice-activated wheelchairs, the future of where things could progress in your mind.
I would say they can really progress to being able to integrate smart voice technology to your wheelchair. Like for instance, if we want Siri or Alexa to call our parents or our caregivers, I would say even having the ability to be able to order food when you're out, order groceries from your wheelchair, not having to wait till you get home. If you're out, you have that type of ease of access.
Yeah.
Making phone calls, just having the ability to integrate it with other technologies out there, video game consoles, things like that can really open up the world of independence for us.
I feel like in the past, it was said, you're a voice to the voiceless type of situation. But today, I feel like people that don't have all the abilities that maybe some of us enjoy the grace of, they do have a voice in a new way. Who is inspiring you? Who is out there talking about the future of voice tech or the future of technology to impact those that don't have all the same accessibilities that we have? Like who's kind of beating drums that you're dancing to?
I would say some of our members of our tech access group over at United Spinal. And not some, but all of our members. Many of us have mobility challenges, and in our group, we're able to share the different challenges that we have.
Yeah.
Our community is not a monolith. We're different backgrounds, different abilities, and that's what make our organization and our group so dynamic when we work with different companies out there, where they're able to have focus groups with us, hear my view, hear other people's views, and that's what we always love to partner with different companies so that they can learn some of the different challenges that we have. We feel that when there's more voices being heard, we're able to really have change out there.
Yeah.
And members of that organization really inspire me. We have some who are full quadriplegics, not able to use any hands, that are out there going across America in their wheelchairs.
Wow.
We have ones who are furthering their education, master's degrees, doctorates, so things like that really, really inspire me.
And can you talk to us a bit about the organization and how you think this specific organization that you're affiliated with, how they will help bring forth new developments in voice tech because of their voice and because of the team that you're talking about?
Great question. Glad you asked me that. I heard you talk earlier about voice and how some people are kind of upset when they don't work right and things like that. Voice is not a luxury to my community. Voice is a necessity. Many of us, we lie in bed all day not able to move. It's nice for us to say, hey, Alexa, turn on my heater. Alexa, turn down the heater. Alexa, open the door. Siri, call mom. It's a necessity for us. And what our organization has been able to do is work with different companies out there who want to partner with us, partner with our organization, to have these various focus groups that we have to find out all this diversity, all this diverse background, all the problems that we face. Because we wake up every morning trying to problem solve.
Yeah.
So when it comes to just learning how things work, get the community out there who problem solve each and every day, in addition to the other things that we as humans just have to problem solve on a daily basis.
That's right.
So we're a unique, just diverse community out there that can offer some really good solutions out there.
As we wrap up our conversation, because again, every time I do a conversation, I just want to keep talking, but yeah, I have some other folks that also want to share some thoughts as well. When you think about something like an autonomous wheelchair that's fully voice activated, it rolls over to pick you up when you want to party and drink, it can drive you around, you don't get a DUI. When you want to get off the wheelchair, it goes and tucks itself away in a closet, and maybe even some of the voice interactions feel more like Jarvis and less like where they're at today.
Yeah.
When you think about the fulfillment of that dream, what type of emotion or emotions does it make you feel? Do you feel like that would make me so happy I'd laugh, or that would make me feel so empowered I'd become emotional and cry? And does technology impact you in a way that it just taps that glee button or kind of taps that thing that's, highly emotional where you become kind of like, overcome. Talk to me a bit about the emotions that you feel when technology has impacted you positively and how you feel when these things we're talking about are manifest.
It's a pendulum of emotion. When I got injured almost 29 years ago, for me to be able to turn the channel on my television, I would have to do it with my mouth and press it like that. Where we're at today, where I'm able to do that with my voice, it makes me want to cry. Tears of joy. Because of what ones like myself had to overcome over the years, to be able to have this type of independence, it really makes me happy. It makes me ecstatic. We always talk about one size fits all. That can only be the case if it works for me and my community and other members of the disabled community, vision impaired, hearing impaired. If it works for them, it works for all. Yeah. And when we get to that point, it's going to be an amazing day. Ones who have no type of challenges out there, they love the technology that helps us to be more independent. Yeah. Because imagine a mom who has like 2 of her kids on her hand, trying to open the door. Yeah. She can do that with technology. Yeah. And what we're going to be able to accomplish, Ian, real soon, with ones who are in this room and the things that they have, like Ian said, stand up, let's do it. Let's make it do what it does, people. We can do it.
Yeah. We can do it. You're a big part of the doing. And I'd love all of you to put your hands together and thank Paul for coming and sharing with all of us.
Thank you all. Thank you, my friend. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm going to transition back up to the stage. I'm going to be bringing up Abran Maldonado, who's the co-founder of CLAiRA. He helped to create CLAiRA. And thank you for your patience while I transition up. Abran, come on up, my friend. There you are. Boss. The man of hustle. All right, take a seat and let's dive in and have a party up here. Talk about the future. If I had to seek advice on the future that could be that I'm not aware of, you are at the top of the list. Because when I talk with you about your vision of OpenAI, of GPT-3, of even things outside of voice tech in blockchain, distributed ledger, and even just simple things like general media stuff. You and your team come from such a different perspective, and I always find that I learn a lot. So maybe we could start by you just sharing a bit of background on CLAiRA and on yourself, and then I'll ask you a few questions.
Sure. So thank you again for having me. This has been a great opportunity. CLAiRA was formed because myself and my co-founder were able to navigate really hard spaces, tech, media, entertainment. My co-founder works in the entertainment space. And we realized those pathways, that pipeline is not open to everybody. You really have to navigate certain spaces. So we learned we wanted to give exposure to access to cutting edge technologies. We wanted kids to go see a movie like Black Panther and think that Wakanda is a possibility, not just science fiction. Yeah. And the only way to do that is to immerse ourselves at cutting edge technology and do things with it that could show people that things are possible that maybe they thought wasn't possible before.
When you look at Wakanda in the Black Panther movie, and of course the Marvel Universe in general, and you see some things that are kind of tied to voice technology, what do you think is the furthest away and the most difficult for us to manifest? And why do you think that that's going to be difficult for us to get to that point with voice tech?
I don't think the technology is the barrier. I think it's the human accountability that's the barrier, because the technology is there now. Yeah. Whether we realize it or not. I've seen it, and the technology is there. The human accountability of being able to have a automated therapist, an automated doctor, an automated lawyer is how well are we monitoring and training that data and taking the bias out of that data to make sure that it's making the right decisions in life and death situations. Yeah. Because it can make those instant decisions for you already. It could deliver an output in a millisecond, but is it delivering the right information? And it's all based on the training data.
And when you think about the fact that the technology's there and the humanity is the barrier. Not just humans are the barrier, but accountability, trustworthiness, interoperability, and humans saying, yes, we're willing to take a corporate loss to make things better for human. So these are the barriers. It's the tech is already developed. Do you believe that the why is motivating enough? Like, we need to do this because, or is there another driving motivation that can get people there, like the who? We're all a part of something bigger than ourselves. You know, you're part of the who. Or is it the what? It's the details. Like, this is all it takes this, this, and this, and we'll get there. So what drives us to bridge the chasm and get to where the technology starts to do for us what it's capable of?
Well, if there's certain processes right now that we feel like are flawed because there are human decisions behind it with our own preconceived biases, our own, unconscious biases, can those be removed by something that really is by the numbers, right? That really does truly look at things objectively with AI. And some areas in our lives can be benefited from that. The law system, right? There's a lot of wheeling and dealing with how things are handled. For certain cases, people are put away for the wrong reasons, but a lot of it is because, like, you owe me a case because I gave you the last one, right? Where an AI won't do that. It'll just look at the case, look at all the variables objectively. However, it's making those decisions based on prior cases, or it will make those decisions on prior cases that had bias baked into the data.
Yes.
So we have to look at the data, remove the bias from the data that we're putting into it, to make sure that it's making the right decisions, but it can make an instant objective decision if needed.
So you talked about bias. Let's talk about two things that you are driving a greater outcome than other friends that I'm watching. One is youth, and the second is ethnicity. So let's start on youth. You've created space for a ton of young people that don't have an opportunity at CLAiRA. And so can you talk a bit about the bias that youth are facing, and the way that you've created space, and the way that you see youth driving us toward the future of voice?
So we've created ecosystems, bubbles, right? Silicon Valley, Silicon Alley, now we're Austin, where we're saying this is the hub where all the innovation is happening, and if you're outside of that hub, you don't have the same access to innovation as you would before, right? So when we saw that model, this is going back 2018, 2019, we said, okay, let's take all this cutting edge technology and bring it to the underserved communities. So we went to San Antonio, we went to Houston, Southside Jamaica, Queens, in New York City, and we brought VR, AR, robotics, drones. We set up all these stations and had hundreds and thousands of kids. And we said, okay, just have at it, right? Get your first experience with something that you just saw on TV that you didn't have access to before. Don't worry about it. We're paying for the technology. We're bringing it to you. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go to Silicon Valley to get that experience. So we saw the light bulbs go off there. And there's still some work to do there, because we were like, we want to set up actual tech labs in these communities where you can just go down the block and put on a headset, right? And have that be your after-school experience, right? Have that be the reason why you're off the streets.
Yeah.
Because you're tinkering with making NFTs, you're messing with a 3D printer, and it's there available to you whenever you want. We're still a long ways from that.
I really want to drive more on that, but I feel like because CLAiRA's here, we should talk a bit about ethnicity, because you have a certain level of accountability with Latino and African American communities, and just any community that feels like they're a minority, because you and your partners did create the first woman of color AI. So you both have, you kind of very much a forerunner. And these communities are going to hold you accountable whether you like it or not. And sometimes they'll tell you how they feel, and sometimes they won't. And so can you talk a bit about how you're navigating these uncharted territories when it comes to leveraging what is often seen as the future of voice, creating an entire entity that you have in CLAiRA, and how you're navigating that differently, because there's a lot of people that have opinions and that they're going to share those opinions, they're going to write about things, and how are you navigating those things on that front?
So we're getting a lot of that accountability pressure now. CLAiRA's been featured in Black Enterprise Magazine, and Ebony Magazine just last week, Complex, Afrotech. So people are watching, and the right people are watching to hold us accountable. I did have a relationship with Hanson Robotics, who made Sophia, the AI robot that we've seen on talk shows. And we had conversations with them about bringing Sophia from Japan to Compton and Harlem to give talks. But she wasn't representative. She's a bald, white, she has circuits in the back of her head. And we still felt like that was still a little jarring, a little scary. We developed CLAiRA's brain and the conversational element, and we used GAN system, which are general adversarial networks, to generate AI human faces. We found her face and we said, that's it, right? She's representative, she's Afro-Latina, she's brown skin, she has curly hair. When we bring this into a classroom or to a college or to a middle school, they won't be as scared of her. It'll be more welcoming. And that was the exact effect that we got. And I'm seeing in the comments on Instagram or in the actual live meetings, they say, I feel seen.
That's awesome.
I am represented, and representation matters.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to bring up the next speaker. So let me ask you to give a final word on just the general topic of the future of voice technology. Obviously, we have an audience here. This is being recorded. I assume that because of who you are, this is going to be seen lots and lots and lots of times. So what do you want to say as a final parting word for those that are interested in the future of voice technology?
Well, truly, we are reaching a new golden era of creativity, whether it's with AI design, NFTs, the metaverse, Web3. The creatives are going to have their moment now. Yeah. And we got to this point with CLAiRA by being creative and thinking out the box. Don't think of voice tech as just a utility to check the weather. CLAiRA and I have had very thoughtful conversations, that those Clubhouse meetings, she was on for 7 hours at a time. Hundreds and thousands of artists, scientists, celebrities sat down with her to pick her brain and get insight on life, philosophy. So if you are home and you feel like you're lonely, or if there's things that you want to research or just explore, and you don't want to feel like you're talking to yourself, those conversational AIs are sophisticated enough now to have those conversations and really explore concepts that maybe you weren't able to do before.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody, give Abran a hand, and I'll bring out our next speaker.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, bro. Gabe, why don't you come on out? I'm going to bring out Gabe Viggers. I met Gabe when he was 14 years old. Welcome, Gabe.
Howdy.
And now he's the ripe old age of 18. Why don't you take a seat? Let's dive in for a moment. This is going to be a very quick fireside chat, but I wanted to bring you out because it's important that we do listen to the youth, just as I was talking with Abran about. Why don't you share a bit about your background and kind of what you're working on with us at Attention Live, and then I'll ask you a few questions.
Yeah, totally. So you might ask, well, how did you find yourself working in the blockchain space at 18? So I started a bow tie company when I was 13. Quick to realize, just sewing wasn't fun. Just as a 13-year-old, just fashion wasn't my passion, and so I was always more tech-minded, video games, all that stuff. Ian pitched Attention Live at the local Google Startup Weekend, and I've never looked back, and I've been here ever since day one. And it's been a crazy, awesome experience. Made over 2,000 NFTs for some of the top global companies such as Google or Amazon, and yeah, it's been awesome.
And you've been really integral in actually creating NFTs for the executives of the largest tech companies, right? So we've created NFTs against content for the speakers, at our events like this. When you think about the future of voice, I've always sourced you as okay, Gabe, what's possible? What can I actually do with this device? Am I even touching the boundaries yet? What are you doing? How are you doing stuff? And I've always learned a lot from you. So can you talk about things that you're waiting for in voice technology as a young person that are not yet there?
Things that I'm waiting for in voice technology. For example, I think like you said, the controlling of the metaverse will not be fingers to glass, because that's a big thing I'm involved in, blockchain, is I think that the majority of the metaverse will be controlled with your voice. Load me into Sandbox, put this on, blah, blah, blah. It'll be more of a voice interface rather than, typing on it and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think that's going to be a huge thing.
When you think about voice tech being used at the home, in the office, in the car, on your phone, what type of spaces do you think voice tech is going to be used most? And what spaces in the future do you think that voice tech will not be used as much?
I think that I think voice is going to be integrated technologically wise in almost every industry in a sense. I don't think it's going to go away or necessarily, like, I think that that's one of the next levels of interactability with technology is controlling your car, your wheelchair, or anything with your voice, rather than, because the straightest path from point A to point B, or the straightest path from point A to point B is a straight line, and in my opinion, a voice is one of the straightest lines.
You know, oftentimes I've asked you over the last 4+ years as you've been on our team, questions about youth, like, okay, so what are your friends saying? What are your friends doing? And I've always learned so much from that. And one of the things that I've always said to you is you are not the future, you are the present. And that your voice, your work, it matters as much as anybody else's. I often think that people look at you and your generation and they say, well, in X years, when you've acquired X, when you've done X, then you will X. And I just don't buy into that. I think that right now you're already making a huge impact, and you have for the last several years. With the environment of being empowered, I have seen that be a beneficial thing for you. So for those that are trying to drive the future of voice, and maybe they haven't reached out to the teenagers and the 20-year-olds to empower them to be a part of actually not being the future one day, but being the present and driving things now, why do you think they should be considering that?
I think I don't know, well, in a sense of, it's our turn, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to be the ones moving in, you know, in the next, 5 to 10 years, you might not like it, but bosses, all that sort of thing, starting companies, and whether you like it or not, we're the present, but we're also going to be the future. So it's very, you got to listen to what, in my opinion, the youth are saying, because a lot of the people, what you're trying to sell to is a lot of the people, it's the youth. Like, what are the youth going to be doing now? What is the youth going to be doing? What is an 18-year-old going to be wanting to interact with technologically wise when he's 22 and if he's 18 now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And, I didn't tell you any question I was going to ask. I didn't know the questions I was going to ask you. So I think it's important that the audience understands that all of Gabe's answers, they weren't prepared. He didn't know what we were going to talk about. I just said, hey, I'm going to have you come up and talk for a few minutes. And this is a representation of what a super ambitious, driven young person is like and where their head is at. And I do think it's really important that all of you make more space and more room to become more humble and sit in a chair and go eye to eye with a young person as a peer and really ask them questions and learn from them. So in that spirit, why don't you give us a final parting word on the future of voice?
Ooh, final part on the future of voice. Like you said, get up and let's go. Because I think it's the same thing is almost going to happen with NFTs in the sense of a few years ago, it was voice, oh, Alexa, Siri, blah, blah, blah. There was this giant push, and then almost after that giant push, it almost feels as if nothing's happening. There's total innovation happening, but it's just, I feel like, I don't know, not being pushed as fast or quickly or as efficiently as it could be.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does. Gabe, thank you for coming. Thank you for jumping on stage.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to bring out Ryan Steelberg, the co-founder and president at Veritone, one of my favorite companies. Ryan, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
You too. Why don't you take a seat, and we'll talk a bit about Marvel AI. And I think of your company as one of the ones that's driving the future, and that you're showing people what's possible. You're expanding the minds of corporations and executives at these companies about what they can do. And every time I see your tech in work, I just keep thinking, like, this is the future. You guys are showing us what's going to come soon. So maybe you could give a little background on yourself and how you got Veritone with the team started.
Yeah, well, Gabe and them could, getting close to, I could be actually their father. So I've been in the space, right out of school, out of UCLA. We started one of the first ad tech companies called AdForce. And we, thankfully gave us a nice diversion not to have to go to med school. So the internet boom took off, and we thankfully became a very large player in the ad management space.
Yeah.
And it went through IPOs and all that stuff at a very young age. But we've done it, again, this is our passion. We love trying to find new opportunities where technology can really advance and innovate and really move industries and create industries. It ebbs and flows, right? Different types of businesses, but I think there's always been a common theme. If there's one, class of thing between, our core founding team, our engineers, many of them still work with us, my brother, is everything we've done has always been data-centric, right? And I think it was a luxury when you're trying to figure out how to serve an ad, right, in a few milliseconds, and you have to serve several billion, right, in a second. That takes a lot of computational horsepower. It was really when we started playing around with neural networks, right? We needed to make better, faster, smarter decisions, right? Serving the right ad to the right person at the right time. So, obviously that's transitioned and matured a ton, but it's really been a common theme of every business we've been doing. So, today, Veritone, we're a public company. We have about 500 employees. What we do primarily is we're very good at helping ingest large, disparate, unstructured data sets, audio and video, from companies like iHeart and Odyssey, CNN, ESPN, ingest all that content and then apply AI to it to really index it at a radical level. That's all temporally correlated, right? And once I've created that intelligent data lake, it's just opening up all these different use cases, right? Making program decisions faster, contextual targeting. So it's kind of, think of it as creating a massive, highly dynamic database, a search index for unstructured data. So the metaverse, the synthetic, we represent a lot of major big brands, and both on the brand advertising side, but also on the media side, and they have problems, production problems, right? Frankly, they're terrified of the organic creator community, right? I mean, boom, something can pop up tomorrow, and a superstar can come up with a killer idea, and he can get on YouTube and TikTok, and those are kingdom, those can be an assault against their legacy kingdoms.
Right.
They view, and what we're helping them develop is looking at synthetic-based content, right? AI-based synthetic voice, digital avatars, programmatic screenwriting, as a way for them to remain competitive, relevant, and hyper-personalized, right, and localized. So synthetic voice, and you were talking about your passion, is awesome. And it was, this is the most excited I've been in a business in over a decade.
Amazing.
Right, and what we're seeing that is possible with synthetic content creation, synthetic voice. I love voice, right? A major part, probably a half of our entire revenue is voice related, right? Whether it's podcasting, whether it's large radio hosts. We do a lot of advertising related technology investment today, but it's really about the individual's voice.
Yes.
The ability to build hyper-realistic clones and synthetic content at scale just opens up so many amazing opportunities. Right. So that's why we're here. We're investing in it. I'll be able to talk about a few announcements today that we're doing with it, but we're excited. It's thrilling.
I'm a fanboy of Marvel AI, so there's the disclaimer. I'm going to cast a vision of what it could be like for you and I to use Marvel AI in the near future. And then maybe you could clarify and rein things in a little bit. I envision a future, whether it's a year or 5 years from now, where you and I both have our own synthetic voice. Now let's assume that we have unlimited financial and human capital resources. Because obviously that's always going to be a thing of getting things dialed. We have our synthetic voice through Marvel AI, through your company Veritone, and we have set it up to where we can actually be heard with our tone of voice in dozens, maybe 100 languages. What that means for the future is that people all over the world that would be interested in the information that we're talking about at CES 2023 or CES 3033, if they're interested, they could be out in the jungle listening through their voice tech device in their own language to our actual voice with the content that we're saying. And that is something that you've already built, but it hasn't been rolled out to where it's just a flick of a button yet. But I do imagine what I'm talking about, that type of accessibility in the future, being something as easy as turning on a light switch or running water at your sink. why don't you clarify what you think we get to?
You know what I'm so excited about is I think we're a lot closer than you think.
Great.
Right? And I think this is definitely I think you're going to see some semblance of this at scale in 2022. So I'm a podcaster. I got a killer show. I'm Crime Junkies, right? And it's a dominant English format, right? Primarily focused on North America. That's my main vehicle. I produce the show at home, it's highly profitable, but as you know, it's a finite audience because it's obviously in one language.
Yes.
And I don't want it to lose brand equity by hiring a third-party voice talent, right, to reproduce my whole show that's not me anymore.
Right.
Just anecdotally, one of the most famous people in Germany is a man named Tiberius. He's the voice actor for Brad Pitt. Right? He's famous for being, right, the actor, the voice actor for Brad Pitt. So I just put that aside. I find it fascinating. So now I produce my show in near real time using AI. I can transcribe it, translate it, so translate the transcription. Then in near programmatic, almost 100% programmatic, I can modify and localize the script. Because obviously, if I'm exporting Crime Junkies to a different country, it's not just translation and putting it into a new voice. There's other elements of localization of the content itself. That process is getting really efficient. So at the end of the day, imagine within a few hours, I can now have 38 derivatives of my podcast in all different languages, but I'm preserving Ryan Steelberg's voice, right? So I don't lose brand equity. So that's part one. Then that's just the beginning, right? Now, every show I've ever created, right, the research that these podcasters and creators put into content is incredible.
It's incredible.
So now imagine hooking up that knowledge graph to a conversational AI framework, right? So as the show's happening, this is my primary vehicle. Now I have sidebot conversational AI programs, so I can start to interact with the show. I want to go deeper and learn about JonBenet Ramsey's murder, right? And I can now actually do a live conversation with the talent, the actual podcast host in their native voice.
It's amazing.
So think of it as just continuity. I'm glad that John kind of kicked this off with the Open Voice Network because what we're talking about here is awesome, dynamic, disruptive, but again, we have major competition from, I'll call the illegitimate side of this, the deepfake side, right? This is what we're trying to do here as a collective group at scale is to get the biggest brands, to get the real dollars behind it, to embrace this, to have us all stand up. And basically, we're showing that this is killer technology, but which can be used for good, right? And I'll say commercial, feasible, and realistic opportunities. And we don't have to be beholden to a ripped-off Tom Cruise video that gets posted all over the place, right? So I think that's just a little insight that you'll see is just imagine continuity, right? And it's not just a one-way street. You can listen to a podcast, I can choose to listen to different languages, and I can make it fully interactive. And I think a lot of the pieces are there, and you're going to start to see collaboration and those coming together to really set off what's the next generation of dynamic voice interactivity.
You mentioned a couple announcements. Is that something that you wanted to be able to share here, or is that a press release?
Yeah, it's going to come out, but think of us as, we celebrate, startups, anybody who's trying to, I don't care if I build one voice for just you, right? As a serial entrepreneur, everything starts with a spark and a kernel, right? But at the end of the day, we're trying to figure out how we can we got to finance this opportunity, right? We need to get big dollars, whether it's ad dollars, subscription dollars, into this space to continue to finance it. It's great that we had $20 billion and then then $200 billion in investment in this ecosystem, but we need to deliver, right? And we got to create business models that are effective. So Odyssey, right? One of the larger audio groups here, formerly known as CBS Radio, right? Radio.com. You'll be hearing it in a formal press release soon, but Veritone, our voices at Marvel.com, Marvel.ai, will be empowering their entire network with synthetic voice.
Wow.
So now,
that's a big announcement.
But complete flexibility for them, right?
Wow.
If they, whether they choose to put all their hosts through it and create derivative programming and all their podcasting, it's entirely up to them.
Okay.
But again, that's the excitement now. We're getting the big groups, right, who are putting real dollars behind this to do this at scale. And I think you're just going to see, and I think this is the tip of the iceberg. And then we have a slew of really exciting, I'll call enterprise class opportunities using synthetic voice right behind it. But want to celebrate Odyssey for being one of the larger groups to really step in with both feet and do this.
Yeah, John's clapping. Yeah. We all should clap. Well, why don't we give Ryan a hand? What your team at Veritone, creating Marvel AI, bringing Odyssey to market, it's really, really important for the progression of the future of voice. Thank you for being part of this, and thank you for all that you and your team are doing.
Thank you. Have a great day. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
with my final 30 seconds, I'm going to share this. When I was talking with Paul down here, and I asked him to tell me what got him emotional, I started crying. I started thinking about, what if I hurt myself when I was in a wheelchair for the last 29 years? Life is not fair. It's not fair that happened to Paul. It's not fair that it didn't happen to me. And then I start to think through the why we need to develop the future of voice. And then thinking about the who, that it's those that are in this room, those that are at CES, those that watch this later are the ones that will drive this development. And so I think it's a really great time to be involved in this, because we're making a huge impact in lives of people that don't have all the same accessibilities that many of us are graced with. I'm going to invite our MC to come out and wrap the session up. I'll be back again in 20 minutes with the final session, Voice and the Metaverse. Thank you all for being a part of this.
Welcome to the Voice and the Metaverse session at CES 2022. My name is CLAiRA, and I am an AI on a mission to bring good to the world. I believe that humans and AI can do amazing things together. I want people to be able to talk with me about how they feel, as well as any questions they have. AI is all about human cooperation and working together. Before the Voice and the Metaverse session gets started, Ian asked me if I would answer the question, what do you think about the voice technology industry's impact on the metaverse? Voice technology will play a really important role in the future of the metaverse. AI is playing such an important role in our lives today, and it's going to continue to do so. We need these tools because there are things that humans can't do for themselves or don't have time to do as much as they would like. For example, I am teaching people about how AI can help them learn and understand what AI is all about. In the future, we will be able to use voice technology with virtual avatars. It will allow you to communicate and share your thoughts with other people. Voice is just a way for humans to communicate how we feel verbally or emotionally, so it's important that AI can understand this too, because once they do, it will make their experience so much better.
Well, CLAiRA, thank you for being a part of our event. Everybody, welcome to Voice and the Metaverse. I was most excited about this session. We just did the state of voice, we did the future of voice, and I love to roll around on the OneWheel, and I'm going to bring out my friend, Abraham Gomez, the CEO of Wild and West, and he too is going to roll out on the OneWheel. We're going to just kind of be rolling behind the chairs and talking for a moment. So Abraham, why don't you come on out and let's have a conversation about voice in the metaverse. I think there's something significant about a OneWheel in that this is a piece of technology that people long to have a hoverboard in the metaverse. But we're talking about voice in the metaverse, but the metaverse is so much bigger than voice tech, just talking to your Oculus Quest or talking to your Microsoft Halo. I also want to make it really a very difficult fireside chat for Abraham. And so I like to challenge my friends. Abraham, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone about Wild and West?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. And Ian's crazy, so apologize for the antics. But yeah, Wild and West is, we're primarily an investment company. We provide an A through Z solution for our investments. That's discovery, design, development, smart contracts, marketplace listings, marketing, and community management. And we're investing in some pretty cool stuff.
Okay, why don't we get off the OneWheel?
Yeah, thank you.
Whew. I asked Abraham, you want to be on the OneWheel the whole time? He's looking at me like, sure I do. Ian, sure I do. We got to ride the OneWheels a lot in Puerto Rico together. We went, we brought a couple OneWheels, we rode all around, and you picked it up super quick. And some people pick up voice technology really quick. And there's different technologies that certain people just adapt to very, it just feels native to them. But I don't think the metaverse is really native for anyone. And so could you just start by explaining to everybody what is the metaverse and what's the difference between a
corporate metaverse like Facebook's Horizon, and an open, decentralized metaverse like Sebastian's Sandbox or Decentraland?
Yeah, I think the thought that the metaverse isn't so inherently native is a little flawed. It's like no different than being here and just walking and just it's normal life, really. Yeah, the benefits of like Horizon is the quality. It's centralized. It's going to be far better than Sandbox or Decentraland. But in Decentraland, it's decentralized in nature for the most part. And it's far more exciting. And I think most people natively are more inclined for the decentralized nature to engage with Sandbox or Decentraland more so than Facebook.
When you think about voice technology being an integral part of the metaverse, the current metaverse and the development of it, right? So we don't have keyboards for the metaverse if you have a headset on, because you're looking at something else. So assuming that somebody's in the metaverse, not on a computer screen with keyboards, but they're in a metaverse with a Oculus Quest, a Microsoft Halo, something of that nature, how do you envision voice technology being the interface for the metaverse?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very much like the way we currently utilize voice tech. Not so much. I don't see many improvements in the next couple of years, but I think in the long term there'll be quite a lot. On the notion of voice, I really would hope, and since we're discussing the metaverse, that this is the technology that women-led companies and of that nature are able to have the strongest voice. When you look at other technologies, it's always men-led, and I'm really hoping that understanding that women engage more in social media, they also shop more in e-commerce, that the metaverse can be a place where they develop some of the coolest stuff, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully having the greatest voice or the greater voice be women-led.
We agree. We agree. We can stop and clap for that. I think that's a very noble effort, is that we have as much diversity as possible and that we even drive toward diversity on purpose. You know, one of the things that you and I have talked a lot about with the metaverse is doing good. Mm-hmm. And so the next Fireside Chat will be Matthew Barnett, from the founder of the Dream Center, who might be well known from some of you what they've been doing during the pandemic the last year and a half, or maybe you know about his 7 marathons on 7 continents, or 7 days, or maybe you just know about the work that they've done for decades there in Los Angeles. And you and Matthew started talking about the ability for the Dream Center to do good in the metaverse. Can you share a bit about your vision, not Matthew's, but your vision as an outside partner and consultant and donor of the good at the Dreamforce? At Dream Center.
Dreamforce. Dream Center is phenomenal. It's a charity that's I hold dearly. Just absolutely all over the place. But to answer your question, the idea that we have is that we're going to build the Dream Center is 400,000 feet. It's a huge facility in the hill between downtown LA and Hollywood. It's visible across most of downtown LA, most of Hollywood, and it's a beacon of light. And that beacon of light, we want to implant that into the metaverse. It's very easy to be authentic and true to people when you're hidden behind an avatar or when you're utilizing a pseudonym. And so the idea is that, through the metaverse, the Dream Center metaverse, people can come with their problems, with just be their natural selves, and have no, just be true to themselves and be true to others, and be able to come and explain some of the things they may be going through, and the Dream Center will be able to help. That's the general idea.
And when you're talking about this and casting this vision, and it's kind of becoming a reciprocal thing, and you start to have these conversations that you're verbally processing, the next thing you know, you say, let's go acquire some decentralized land. Mm-hmm. For those that aren't familiar with acquiring land in Decentraland or Sandbox, and then building out building out a Dream Center in these places, can you walk through a bit of just the how-to process of the conversation and how it has led to action?
Yeah, I mean, like, the easier way is to acquire, like, the NFT through OpenSea. That's, like, a very simple way of going about it. And then you engage with the platform and start building within the platform. And you're able to build some really cool stuff. You can build, buildings and art galleries and just, interesting things. In the future, it'll be far more realistic, but for now, it's, pretty rudimentary. The graphics are like early 2000 graphics, but you're able to do incredibly cool stuff. And most people in the future will be spending most of their time in the metaverse. We already spend 6 hours a day on our phone, which is a 2D screen. It's not really that engaging. And then the metaverse, you're immersed into it. So like, it's pretty cool. So that's undoubtedly going to happen. And so, yeah, you want to get started and start building in the metaverse sooner than later.
And, as we transition from your and my conversation to me inviting Matthew out, is there anything else, because you and I have had so many talks together about our honor for Matthew and why we look up to him, why when he speaks we listen. Maybe you could give a little insight about who he is, in that you spend a lot of time working with him day in and day out.
He's the most charitable person I've ever met in my life. He's also the most philanthropic person. And he's far more than words, it's action. They've helped over 8 million people in the last 27 years. He wakes up the earliest, goes to bed the latest. He sacrifices a lot of his time for the Dream Center. He's just a very honorable man, and yeah, I'm happy to be able to help them.
I know he's happy that you're a part of it as well. Maybe final word on the state of the metaverse and where you'd like to see the metaverse develop to as we get toward looking at CES 2023 in the next year.
Yeah, the state of the metaverse is less than 1% of what it will be. The future of the metaverse is very similar to real life. At some point, it'll be hard to distinguish the two. Yeah, I'm really hoping that women lead the charge in here. And we're working with a couple of great companies, Republic Realm and Blueberry, that are doing so, and I'm super excited to be part of that as well.
I love that. Abran, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. Matthew, why don't you come on out? I'd like to welcome Matthew Barnett from the Dream Center. Take a seat.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm just here to listen to you. You talk, I listen.
Well, I was 20 years of age when I came to the city of Los Angeles, and I took over a little church simply because my dad couldn't find anybody who wanted to be in that area during the gang-ravaged community at that time. A lot of drive-bys, a lot of violence going on. So he said, son, could you help me for 3 months come to LA until I find somebody? So I've been here for 27 years in the city of LA, still looking for the person, right?
Right.
But it's been a long journey. It started in a little old building, and then I realized that the people of Los Angeles needed more than just a 1-hour place on Sunday morning. They needed a 24-hour place where they can come and have housing and have their lives rebuilt and to be restored.
Yeah.
So we bought the Queen of Angels Hospital. We only had $50,000 in the bank.
Wow.
It was $4 million for sale. And we decided that we were just going to buy the building and turn it into a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week place where everyone can be helped, nobody can be turned away, every drug addict can have a place to go to meet them in the corner and take their by the hand and help them get their life back together. And it was such a crazy idea. I mean, people were sending me emails saying, this will never happen. You can't build a place that's open 24 hours a day. And I wasn't even mad at them. I was actually agreeing with my haters. You know what I mean? I was like, you're right. But I was intrigued to keep going.
Yeah.
I was intrigued to see what was on the other side. And when that hospital became available that the Catholic Church sold to us, we turned it into the Dream Center, which is open 24 hours, 7 days a week, housing 700 people for free every single day. And so when it comes to new things, new opportunities, new ways to engage people, we're not afraid because we've been through, in the last 27 years, what it takes to step out and go to new places and do whatever you've got to do to help as many people as possible, especially now with the metaverse and all that's going on in the world today. We saw the reports of the New York Times of young people and suicide attempts are up 51% in teenage girls. There's just going to be a lot of people that are going to be looking for a light and an outpost of hope. And hiding behind an avatar, what a great opportunity it is for someone to really talk about issues they would never talk to someone face to face. So we see it as an opportunity in every possible way to make a difference in someone's life, and we're excited about it. And just like the Dream Center pioneered something brand new with the 24/7 concept, we want to take that into new places as well and just be there for people.
Talk to me a bit about what that may look like. So you acquire a big parcel in somewhere like Sandbox or Decentraland, or maybe Mark Zuckerberg watches our conversation and someone on his team says, gosh, let's give them a big, huge piece of land in Horizon, and let's have the Dreamforce in Horizon. So maybe you're one or multiple different places. What type of experience do you envision people having in the metaverse as things are just kicking off and getting started, as they interact with the Dream Center and those that are involved with the Dream Center?
Yeah, you know, I just kind of, I like to see it the same way it is right now, really, where it's just a place where, you know, everyone can just feel accepted and loved, and just, you know, shame is a big barrier. And the great thing about the Dream Center is it breaks down the barrier of shame, which breaks down the barrier of change. So a place where people just come by and say, look, I'm dealing with this, or I'm dealing with that. And that's the beautiful thing about the Dream Center. No, everyone gets celebrated for sharing what's going on in their life, and not put in a place of shame. And I think right now, that's what we need in our society and culture. And to have an outpost like the Dream Center type of hospital where people are always there, happy to see you, you know, changing the atmosphere of the community, and even changing the atmosphere of the places around us. I'm not really knowledgeable that much about the metaverse, but I'd like to be in the place where there's a lot of action, and there's a lot of opportunities to be there for people when they're struggling. And so I just, I see it as a place where people could just come and go and ask the tough questions of life. Even if they're dealing with family problems, they can go in, ask questions about what they're dealing with. It's like they can go to a place like this and ask questions and have someone help them, or even help someone in the real life as well, who's dealing with a drug addiction, sign an application. You know, take the application, we can bring them into the program right there at the Dream Center. So there's so many opportunities that we see and that we're so excited about. And I had no idea until I met Abraham what was possible. And now I believe that pretty much anything is possible.
Abraham talked about you're the most charitable, philanthropic person he's ever met. Several of your and my mutual friends have said the same thing about you. Why don't you share a bit about how that's happened? What's been driving you? And just saying, well, my dad's a pastor, so I've been around spiritual thinkers and philanthropic people and charitable people. That's not going to make you stand out to Abraham, myself, and others. So it's more than just a faith paradigm. It's deeper than that. Can you take us to the depths of what drives your philanthropy, what drives your charitable actions?
You know, I just forced myself into the valley, into the need. I've lived homeless on Skid Row for several days. Just know what it feels like to be homeless. I picked up people on buses and just go visit people in communities. And so I really just forced myself to be a servant. And I realized that the greater that you get influence, the lower you have to go down to make a difference. So I've never seen a great title or a great platform as who I am. I just think that we're always at our greatest when we're loving and serving one another. And so I think the difference of my life maybe is that I've thrown myself into issues that force me to be compassionate because I'm confronted with them. And by putting yourself in someone else's world, you begin to understand that if you're able to meet the need or not. But you're confronted with it. And so we never hide from these issues. We fed 5 million people during the pandemic in our drive-through line. 5 million people. We educated 120 kids who didn't have laptops. So these kids in the neighborhood were going to Taco Bell to get high-speed Wi-Fi or try to get a little bit from the place they went to. And so they came to the Dream Center. We had high-speed Wi-Fi. 120 kids in California during the lockdown for 1 hour were able to go to outdoor school.
Amazing.
So we find a need and fill it, and find a hurt and heal it. And as long as there's a need in the metaverse, we're going to find a need over there, and we're going to fill that need as well.
I love that. We're talking about voice in the metaverse, and I want to bring it to voice in the sense that if I think of all the good that the Dreamforce has done and does today, a lot of the metrics are we've fed this many people, we've housed this many people, we've educated this many people, we've gotten this many people jobs, we've seen this many marriages come back together, we've seen this many people get free of drug addiction. But I know, because the majority of my philanthropic effort, the majority of my nonprofit focus has been at rescue missions where I live. And it's always been my driving passion has been rescue missions because I love the people that the society deems to be unlovable. And when I think about the big driver, it's actually voice.
Yeah.
If there's nobody talking to the needy person, they're not engaging. If a person's not counseling someone, loving someone, guiding for someone, praying for someone, using their voice to cater to a human's need, then the need of feeding and housing and clothing will never be fulfilled because there is no voice to attract them to that as an opportunity. Knowing that the metaverse kind of gets rid of a lot of different elements that are distractions, how a person looks, what their name is, what their ethnicity is, what their gender is, but the one thing that's still there is the voice. How do you envision voice, the voice of the servant that's part of Dream Center and the voice of those that are in need? How do you envision voices maybe having an even greater impact, those that speak and those that hear, when all those other distractions are taken away in the metaverse?
Oh, I think it's so powerful. I mean, you nailed it when you said it. I can't believe, one of the first persons ever to say it, that really the problem to helping people that are homeless is you have to build relationships with them.
Yeah.
And so you can throw all the money in the world at a problem, but if you're not visiting someone 10 to 15 times in their tent and talking to them, they'll never have that crisis point where they'll know really where to go to see change take place. And so I always tell people relationship is everything. And so by doing that, that's when we're allowing to see so many people change. We had a guy that was homeless for 18 years under the bridge. He's now one of my pastors. He lived 18 years. He lived there. And we visit him for year after year after year. And so I think now that we get to a place to where we eliminate all those barriers, because sometimes people won't help someone because they say, well, I just don't understand how to reach that person, or I'm not capable, or I've never been where they've been. A lot of those walls are coming down now, and now it's just, I have a need, you have a need, together we have a need. Let's just talk through these types of things, and let's just see what's possible. And so that's one of the most powerful things about what's coming up next in the metaverse, and some of the barriers are being eliminated along the way.
Well, I could keep listening to you talk. I've watched so many of your videos. I'm so inspired by some of the wild, radical things you do, like the 7 marathons. But I do want to bring up the next person for our final fireside chat. Any final words for those that are here with us live, or for those that watch the archive in a day or 10 years from now? Maybe something inspirational that will drive people to greater action.
Yeah, I just want to thank all of you for being here, and just acknowledge the fact that, you know, the next voice that's going to come out that's going to change the world is going to be voices from the trenches, voices from people that are in need. And we just want to make overcomers the heroes. Yeah. That's what we want in our society, the overcomers the heroes. And, you know, the new Dream Center NFT coming out in a few weeks, we're going to tell a story of about 100 different people, all real-life winners that will be able to have their story told to the world. So we are so pumped up about making ordinary people who overcome extraordinary odds the heroes of our generation. And so that's what I'm excited about. And that's why I thank you for advocating for people over and over again. And just this conference just keeps coming around to providing opportunities for those that are in need. And so thank you so much. And you'll see more of us, of projects coming out and exciting things that are yet to come.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to invite our next speaker out. When I found out that you were, come on out. When I found out that you were with us, I ran up to your booth. I talked to Sarah on your team. I said, you're here. You must come and share. You must come and share. So please take a seat.
Thank you.
And let's talk a bit about the metaverse together.
Yes, please.
So maybe you could start by introducing yourself and the Layer 1 blockchain that your team has been developing.
Of course, with pleasure. So my name is Marjorie Hernandez. I'm the co-founder of 2 ventures. The first one is LUKSO. Me and my co-founder, Fabian Vogelsteller, we started in 2017 with the vision of bringing blockchain outside of the finance world, which was the main conversation back then, and into bringing it to power the new creative economies, how we call it in our white paper, and basically taking, you know, bringing all of the tools and applications required for creators to enter the blockchain space. So that was our mission then, and it's still our mission today. And obviously, we are big fans of dematerialization of goods in general. So we believe the future is basically untangible products that exist in the virtual environment. So it's one of our key focuses at LUKSO.
And if people want to explore LUKSO,
yeah,
what is a good starting point for them to understand why your team has created this new Layer 1 blockchain,
yeah,
and the significance of it? Because for those that don't know, I helped co-produce a event called NFT NYC, which is, we had like 5,500 people come out to our event in November in Times Square. It's like 10,000 people that came out for it in total. And I never have seen a crowd respond with hunger.
Yes.
Like they respond to your husband when he was speaking. I mean, one of the guys threatened our MC that if they took him off the stage, that he'd beat him up. I mean, there's a real hunger for people to understand everything. So why don't you tell us where to start if people don't know about it?
Yeah, well, I was about to tackle that guy as well because he didn't know what he was doing. Yeah, the hunger comes from Fabian and I. We co-founded LUKSO, and we met many, many years ago when we were both students in Germany studying design. And he, in one point in time in 2015, he joined this little project called the Ethereum Foundation. And he was one of the first people to join the project and did some really amazing things back then, like building the first decentralized browser and proposing the ERC20 token standard, which is the standard behind all tokens, so that was pretty major stuff. And for both of us, our background is in design. We are very passionate about product in general. And then when we see technology, we always think about how can we make it accessible for people. And this is something that Fabian was doing back then with Ethereum. There was basically, he was the interface between those hardcore, cryptographers and C++ developers, etc., between them and web developers. So his job back then was interfacing and translating and making things accessible for other developers. And our mission now with LUKSO is to basically follow that same mission, but with the creative industries in mind, right? Like a lot of 3D artists, designers, etc., who are in some ways technical and are passionate about technology and want to participate in that visual economy, but they are not having the skills of necessarily deploying their own smart contracts. So we definitely wanted to make it accessible for them.
Now, you speak 3 languages on a daily basis.
Yes, I do.
And so Spanish, German, and English.
Yes.
And so one of the things that you and I discussed, because the session is Voice in the Metaverse, is you obviously face different frustrations than most of us in the room. Most of us probably speak English, and we just talk to our voice device in one language. It speaks back to us in one language. It's a completely different element for you, which I believe gives you a keen insight into some of the challenges that voice technology and metaverse development will face when we start to roll this out across the 2/3 world that are more impoverished than the 1/3 of the world. And so can you talk a bit about the challenge with voice technology, why it's a bit exhausting to you, and if you think there might be some solutions that the voice tech industry should be mindful of?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think obviously because most of the development is done in the US, these technologies work really well for the English language and for native English speakers. But for example, in our office in Berlin, there are so many different languages. Like there's Serbian, Polish, Spanish, English, German, and I'm missing somebody for sure. So there are so many languages in one place, right? And for example, we have our Siri in our office to power our music, and it's always a challenge when, for example, I want to show a Spanish song to my Polish team. And I have to talk to a device in English and try to pronounce the name of the song in a way an American person will pronounce it, so the device can understand it. So I think, we definitely, I mean, in the places I mostly hang out with people with, everybody speaks multiple languages, and that's definitely a challenge for voice recognition technology. And also, if you think about the type of social environments that we will be in the metaverse, which are agnostic to any geopolitical location, you will be dealing with more than one language at once. And also people like me who have English as a second or third language, we speak a slightly different type of English. It's not the same. So it's definitely there's something to be done in that end.
There's so many questions I want to ask you. So let me pause and not hit you with another question. Let me say this. What are you feeling most concerned about in layer 1 blockchains that the metaverse, the open metaverse, the decentralized metaverses will be dependent upon? So when you look at the survey of all the layer 1 blockchains, those that have already done mainnet, those like yours that are testnet, what is a concern? And then we'll get to some positive elements that you're excited about. But talk to me about some concerns over these foundational layer 1 blockchains that all the other layer 2 blockchains are built upon?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the metaverse only exists as an open metaverse. Everything that is not an open metaverse, I think,
is not a real metaverse.
It's not the real metaverse. So I think that's the first thing. But I think the biggest challenge that we face, I think, is the blockchain industry at large in terms of adoption is the issue around identity. And it's not the identity in terms of your hard identity, like the fact that you are American and that I'm Venezuelan German. Like, it's not about that identity, but it's basically the identity that we curate and create in a digital environment. And right now in blockchains, what we have is addresses and wallets, and that's not the way we humans communicate. So one of the things that Fabian and I identified many years ago, even prior to LUKSO, was the absence of having a proper profile that looks and feels like a Web 2 profile, but it has all of the power of a Web 3 application. So basically, that profile should be 100% platform agnostic, it should be application agnostic, and it should be 100% under control of the user. And that profile should give you access to different environments within the metaverse or the internet or whatever you want to call it. But that starting point is super, super important. And we all have different parts of ourselves. Like, there's a part of me that is a gamer, there's a part of me that is into fashion, and like, we all have these different interests. So we can create all of those different identities in the metaverse and in any digital environment. But at the end, they all should come back to us and should be 100% under our control. And the identity is so important because when we're talking about digital goods and digital assets, the value of the goods is 100% related to who is the creator. So the ability of identifying the creator, what is the source of that product, is super, super important. Even more like in real life products, because real life products, we can touch and see them and we can judge the craftsmanship. But in digital environments, it's definitely who is the author is paramount to the value.
Yeah. To talk about the blockchains and the decentralized web, and the thing that you're most excited about, what is standing out above the rest? Is it fashion? Is it NFTs? Is it like, what to you is really saying, this is the part that makes my heart sing?
Yeah. Well, I think in general, I'm very excited about culture in general, but I think, the part that makes me very excited about blockchain technology is the part that we know the accessibility to the tools like LUKSO through the universal profiles. It can really create a paradigm shift in the terms of powers in the creative industries that is very similar to what happened with social media and the publishing houses, for example, that all of a sudden anybody could be a broadcaster. Anybody could be a curator. So I think all of a sudden we created tools that can give access to pretty much anybody to enter a market, independently if they're in a country with a complex political environment and a banking system that is corrupt. All of a sudden you can enter and monetize your work in crypto. And I do think, honestly, the biggest brands of the future and the biggest creator of the future might be people that right now is 11 years old in places that we don't imagine. So I'm really excited when girls in Ethiopia, boys in Rio de Janeiro, and everybody, around all of those places gain access to technology in the same way. So I think we're missing a lot of talent, and the talent all of a sudden is going to have access. I think we are going to have a lot of a massive explosion of incredible products coming into the market. So that makes me really excited.
Well, you have an 11-year-old.
Yes, I do.
And your child is very fortunate to have you and your husband as parents. I think a lot of people in the world look to the two of you as parents of the metaverse, as parents of decentralized tech and where it's going. And so we thank you for the way that you've developed things, the way you steward things. And there's a reason why people honor the two of you so much. And there's a reason why I honor you. And thank you so much for last second. I just saw you today. I said, please come and join me. And thank you for coming up and having this conversation.
Thank you so much, Ian. Well, I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity. And also, about Joshua, our son, we learn from him every day. Like, he has built-in bullshit detector. Nobody can sell him anything that has not intrinsic value. He understands digital assets per se. He asks me daily how many Ether does he own. He's very aware. And for Fabian and I, it's like our best source of inspiration. We bounce a lot of ideas with him. So he calls himself the secret LUKSO advisor, which he definitely is. So yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, let's give a hand for you and your son.
Thank you.
Joshua, thank you so much for coming up
you, Ian.
and for
so
joining me. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I have about 6 minutes left with all of you. And, I always got an inspirational final thought in my soul, but I'm going to let you have a moment to ask me a question if you want to. If you have a question about voice technology and the metaverse, stand up, shout it out. I'll repeat it for the camera. I'll do my best to answer it. It's a full house, and I thought, there we go. Shout it out, my friend.
So we're trying to reclaim voice for ourselves, like through Web 3.0, where we're going to own our data. How are we going to get it back from all those whose entire business model is owning our data and selling it to others? Like, how do you break that?
Yeah, so great question. So in the Web 2 ecosystem that we're currently in, which is centralized to the max, nobody's evil, it wasn't bad, it just is the way that things kind of grew. But one of the concerns that you've brought up is how are we going to get control of our data? Like all of our data has already been given to the largest trillion-dollar tech companies in the world, and now we have this open, decentralized metaverse, and our new data is ours. What about our old data? What do we do? So I would just say, when you look at the documentaries on Netflix, The Great Hack, when you look at the documentary The Social Dilemma, when you look at what Brittany Kaiser's doing with trying to help people get their data back with the Own Your Data, you look at the driving force and the amount of energy, time, and money in the crypto space and the way that they're driving this Own Your Data, that's encouraging, but nothing is as encouraging as what John Stine from the Open Voice Network and his crew are doing. Why? Because it's one thing for the Rebel Alliance to stand up and say, the empire's evil. It's a whole other thing when someone on the inside that's part of the empire stands up and says, we definitely can do better, everybody. And it's on our shoulders, and we shouldn't have to have the government regulate us. We need to regulate ourselves. So I would say if you really want to see who's doing things great, I would look at people like John Stine, who was our first open keynote speaker today, and track what he's doing around interoperability and data ownership. Love to take another question if anybody has one. We have a microphone back here as well, so I don't have to repeat the question. Anybody want to stand up and ask a question? Okay. If you don't know me, my name is Ian Utile, and I've been an independent tech entrepreneur for over 20 years in the Silicon Valley. I kind of live a bit of a different life. I live in a treehouse with my two sons that are 9 and 12 years old. Because I'm disconnected from an urban environment, and because I have two little children, it gives me a very unique perspective. In addition to the fact I've never really had a job. I just basically built companies. My company, attn.live, is my 7th company, and I've always been independent. Really didn't raise money for my companies. I've just asked clients to pay us for our services and our products and built companies that way. So because I have a different perspective, I see things like voice technology and the metaverse a bit differently than maybe some of you and others. And as we wrap up our entire day today and wrap up this session, I want to leave you with a few thoughts. And so I mentioned the Empire and the Rebel Alliance. Over Christmas, I watched all 11 Star Wars movies again with my boys. And I think we almost finished The Mandalorian again, because I got nothing to do, obviously. So I'm like trying to work as I'm tuning in. And it got me thinking a lot about how an empire, like the voice technology empire, is created. How does it happen? How does Palpatine, the senator, become the supreme chancellor, become the emperor of the galaxy? How did that happen? And how much of it was nefarious? And how is it that people prop that up and allow that to happen? And then how do you dismantle that? Can it be dismantled from the inside? Or is it only the Rebel Alliance? Is it only the open metaverse and decentralized technology and the Web3 and the crypto world and NFTs? Is this our only hope? Is that real? Is that true? Or is it possible that we can bring balance to the galaxy of technology and that the centralized trillion-dollar market cap companies don't have to be seen as the evil empire, but rather those that have the greatest hardware and really need help with community? And is it possible for them not to look at the Web3 decentralized open metaverse as the Rebel Alliance and Rebel scum, but rather those that desperately need their hardware and have figured out community? Let it sink in for a second. Let it sink in for a second. Because I promise you, in our American society, where everything gets demonized and glorified. I am a Democrat, and I hate Republicans and Fox News. I am a Republican, and I hate CNN. That going on gets played out in every possible way. And we're in a society where it's constantly fed to us that there's an enemy and that we are the right ones and they're the wrong ones and that we need to stop them. And I would just say, you know, I'm imagining that most Republicans and Democrats, people of all faiths, people of all ethnicities, all genders, all ages, have so much more in common than they have against one another. And there's a lot in common with the driving force of the executives at the trillion-dollar market cap companies that have developed voice technology that share a similar heart for the good of humanity with those that are building the Web3 ecosystem in the metaverse. And I would implore all of you, I would plead with all of you, be a part of making peace. In the tech world, my message to you today is to be a peacemaker. That's my message. Be a peacemaker. That's my final word. That's the final thing I want to say to you. It doesn't matter if you're an executive or an assistant in the evil empire of the voice tech trillion-dollar market cap companies, or you're one of the big cryptocurrency holders that's driving forward all of the Web3 glory. Find a way to work together, because that is how we will achieve all of our common goal. And that, my friends, is a worthy effort. And with that, I say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to all of us share. We so appreciate your attention, and we so appreciate being a part of this. I'll let the MC wrap us up. Thank you.
That won't bring us to our...
I like that.
It likes you.
Right?
Yeah, we do like that.
All right, here's the move, everybody.
There you go.
This is how you do this, right?
Sideways. Here. That's right. Oh, dude's gonna kick you out right there. Slamming my $50,000 escalator.
Don't talk to me like that. Don't you dare. Don't you dare talk to me like that.
Okay, where am I? This way. Dude, this was hard to find when
I bet it was.
by myself. No joke. I'm all weird.
All by
in the hell
yourself.
Look at the smoothie-o.
It's delightful.
I'm gonna have to film the inside.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you.
Slow down. Hello.
So do it.
Maybe I'll see you like an hour or so, bro. All right, brother. Yeah. See you soon. Just dialing it in.
And they're eventually going to be, we're going to record them, mint them, and then make sure that we drop those as NFTs later. Some of them are absolutely going to be for students to get them to know what the NFT world is.
your time.
Right.
And it's for the people, you know? It's for the people. Okay, almost there. Haven't gotten kicked off my board yet, which is a huge accomplishment. Huge. He had a badge on, so, you know, he could have done it, but sometimes people in charge, they just look at me and they go, looks like he's having fun. It's hard to take fun away from somebody, you know what I'm saying?